The emergency room was a symphony of controlled chaos, a place where every second counted. That day, a new, urgent rhythm was added to the mix. A multi-car pileup on the interstate had sent a flood of critical patients their way. Every doctor, every nurse, was a blur of motion. Amidst this frantic energy, a young security guard named Mark stood near the entrance, his posture rigid with a sense of self-importance. He was new, eager to prove his authority, and saw the world in black and white. Rules were rules. Then he saw her. A black woman in simple blue scrubs, walking with a calm, focused demeanor towards the restricted surgical wing. She wasn't rushing like the others. Her pace was deliberate, her eyes scanning the scene with an intensity that Mark misinterpreted as confusion. He straightened up, puffing out his chest, and stepped directly into her path. "Ma'am, can I help you?" "This area is for authorized personnel only." The woman, Dr. Evelyn Reed, paused. She had just finished a grueling 14-hour shift and was on her way to grab a quick coffee before her day officially ended. She looked at the young guard, noting the fresh crease in his uniform and the tense set of his jaw. "I work here," she said simply, her voice tired but steady. Mark's eyes swept over her. He saw the plain scrubs, the lack of a visible ID badge clipped to her chest, and the color of her skin. In his mind, a biased narrative began to form. He'd seen family members try to sneak past before, desperate for news. He assumed she was one of them. "I'm going to need to see your hospital ID," he demanded, his tone escalating from firm to confrontational. Evelyn sighed internally. She'd left her ID in her locker, along with her phone and wallet, a habit she had to avoid losing them during hectic shifts. "It's in my locker," she explained patiently. "I just came from OR3. I'm Dr. Reed." The name didn't register with Mark. He only saw what his prejudice allowed him to see. "Look, I don't have time for this. We have a mass casualty event. You can't be wandering around here. If you don't have an ID, you need to leave. Go to the main waiting room." His voice was loud now, drawing glances from busy nurses. Evelyn's fatigue was quickly being replaced by a familiar sting of indignation. "Young man," she started, her voice dropping to a low, serious tone, "I am a doctor at this hospital. I suggest you lower your voice." This only emboldened Mark. "A doctor?" "Right. Everyone's a doctor today. I'm telling you for the last time. You need to leave this area now, or I will have to escort you out." He gestured pointedly towards the main entrance. For a moment, the ER seemed to hold its breath. A senior nurse, Maria, looked over, her brow furrowed in concern, but she was immediately pulled away by a crashing patient. Evelyn stared at him, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her: anger, frustration, and a deep, weary sadness. She had fought her way through medical school, residency, and years of grueling work, breaking barriers at every turn to get to where she was. Yet in this moment, she was reduced to a suspicious stranger in her own workplace. Arguing further would only create a bigger scene and waste precious time. With a final, disappointed look, she turned and walked away, not towards the waiting room, but back towards the locker rooms. Mark watched her go, a smirk of satisfaction on his face. He had done his job. He had maintained security. He turned back to his post, feeling proud. Minutes later, the overhead speakers crackled to life. "Code trauma, OR2. Code trauma, OR2. Dr. Albright, Dr. Chen, and Dr. Reed 2R2 immediately." Mark barely registered the announcement. He was too busy directing a lost-looking family member. But then, the head of the entire hospital, Mr. Harrison, came power-walking down the corridor, his face a mask of extreme stress. He was followed by the head of nursing and two other department chiefs. They were headed for the main surgical briefing room, right past Mark's post. Just as they approached, Dr. Evelyn Reed reappeared. This time, she wasn't in plain scrubs. She wore the dark green scrubs reserved for chief surgeons. Clipped prominently to her pocket was a photo ID that read, "Dr. Evelyn Reed, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery." Her hair was now tucked neatly into a surgical cap, and she moved with an unmistakable air of command that had been there all along. An authority Mark had been too blind to see. Mr. Harrison's face lit up with relief when he saw her. "Evelyn, thank God. We have a VIP patient from the pileup, critical chest trauma. No one else here can handle it. We need you." Evelyn nodded, her focus absolute. The personal slight from moments ago was compartmentalized, filed away for another time. A life was on the line. I've seen the scans. Get Theora prepped for a full bypass. I want Dr. Chen assisting. Paige the perfusionist. Let's move. Her voice was pure steel, cutting through the chaos and commanding instant action. The group of hospital leaders fell into step behind her as she strode towards the surgical wing. As she passed Mark, she didn't spare him a glance. She didn't have to. His face had gone from smug to shocked to utterly mortified. The blood drained from his face as the reality of the situation crashed down on him. The woman he had just belittled, disrespected, kicked out was not just a doctor. She was one of the most important surgeons in the entire hospital. She was the one everyone was desperately waiting for. He watched her disappear into the restricted area he had so forcefully barred her from just 10 minutes earlier. The weight of his ignorance felt suffocating. He had let his bias create a dangerous delay. What if she hadn't come back? What if the patient had died because he, a low-level security guard, had decided he knew better? The thought made him feel sick. Hours later, the light above Or 2 finally went out. Dr. Reed emerged, physically and emotionally drained, but triumphant. She had saved a life. As she made her way to her office, she found Mark waiting for her. He looked small and defeated. "Dr. Reed," he began, his voice barely a whisper. I am so sorry. There's no excuse for my behavior. I was wrong. I was unprofessional, and I'm just so sorry." Evelyn looked at him, her expression unreadable. She could have ended his career with a single complaint. But she had every right to. But as she looked at the genuinely remorseful young man in front of her, she saw not an enemy, but a teachable moment. "Your bias almost had disastrous consequences today," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "You didn't see a surgeon. You saw a black woman who in your mind didn't belong. You need to understand that people who look like me belong in every room at every level. Your job is to ensure safety, not to be a gatekeeper based on your own prejudices." She let the words sink in. "I'm not going to report you," she continued, and Mark's head snapped up in surprise, "because I believe people can learn. But you have a lot of learning to do. See the person, not your perception. See the uniform, not the color of the skin beneath it. Do better." With that, she walked past him, leaving him standing in the hallway, humbled and forever changed. Dr. Evelyn Reed didn't just save a life in the operating room that day. She also opened a mind in the hallway, proving that true strength isn't just about what you can do with a scalpel, but how you handle the cuts and slights of the world with grace, dignity, and a profound will to heal. Thanks for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. See you next time.